3. True terrifying break-in stories. This is a story of something that happened to me and will forever haunt me. I'm 14 years old and I live in South Africa, which is a place where crime is very common. Occasionally, I hear gunshots outside my house, but that is something that is normal here. I live in a big house, with security cameras everywhere and motion detectors. My family's house has 2 gates, just as a safety precaution. Power outages are also normal in South Africa, because of our corrupt government. Anyway, I was sitting and eating dinner with my family, when my brother asked me, "Hey, did you hear that?" I replied no. He went on to say that he heard something break outside on our patio, like a wine bottle or something. Since I'm not paranoid, like him, I finished eating and went to go study for my exam, and sat on the couch in my living room. My parents announced that they were going to the gym, as they do on Saturday nights. So I said goodbye to them and carried on working. As I was working, I heard a crash from outside, near the patio, like my brother said. What happened next sends shivers down my spine to this day. My brother walked into the living room looking panicked. I'd never seen him so scared in my life before. He sat down next to me and stared at me for about 10 seconds with a look of complete and utter fear, his eyes wide open. "What's wrong?" I stuttered. "Upstairs. Now," he exclaimed while grabbing my arm viciously. "What the hell is going on?" I asked once we were upstairs. He didn't answer. He just started winding the shutter down. The shutter is a large door that connects the downstairs to the upstairs. We are only supposed to use the shutter in emergencies, as it is made of a strong metal that is hard for an intruder to break through. He then ushered me to his room, the 3rd story of our house, which overlooks our garden and patio. Putting a single finger over his mouth to shush me, he pointed to what looked like a dark figure by our patio. At first, it looked like a long shrub. But as I adjusted and focused my eyes, I had to stop myself from shrieking. The realization made my bones feel like lead and my blood feel colder than ice. A man holding a broken wine bottle was pacing around our patio. He looked about 5'9", with a shaggy beard. That's not what scared me the most about him. His eyes were wide open and he was smiling. A smile so sinister and crazed. He looked as if he'd just been let out of a mental institute. "Who is he?" I started saying. "Bad mistake." The man turned to us and looked directly into my eyes with that same agonizing, crazed look that gave me goosebumps. He then started to run, a slow staggering run that made him look injured. Towards the door to the inside of the house he went, and I was sure he was coming for us. I was so shaken up, I could hardly breathe, and so was my brother, and without a word he took my hand and we headed to my room, on the 2nd floor. Since I'm his little sister, he always considered me his responsibility. So he held my hand and told me everything was going to be okay, even though I knew inside me, that it wasn't. Just then we heard slow clapping footsteps coming up the stairs. The shutter was closed, so he wouldn't be able to get to us. Just then, at just the right time, the power cut, leaving my brother and I in darkness. But my brother stumbled around and closed my door, locking it. He then explained to me that without the power, the shutters can be easily pried open. I thought for sure that my life was going to end soon. Just then I heard an excruciating sound, that sounded like the shutters being forced open, and I headed for my drawer to get my hunting knife that I had received as a birthday gift. In my right hand I clutched my knife, and in the other, I held my brother's hand. Suddenly, the sound of the shutters opening stopped. What replaced it was the sound of something metal, presumably a knife, scraping up against my bedroom door. We sat there shaking, not knowing what to do. When I asked my brother if he had his phone on him, and he stated that he had already called 112, which is our 911. But we both knew that the 112 squad would take a long time to come, since here in South Africa, they usually hang out at McDonald's instead of coming for their duties. The scraping at the door continued for what seemed like ages. Seconds felt like minutes, and then my brother made me hide in my cupboard and hand him my hunting knife. With my heart racing and my palms sweating, I heard the sound of police vehicles outside, and my brother used the gate remote to open up for them. They rushed in and captured the man. The police told us the man had been on the run from the local asylum for the past 3 months, and had been charged with manslaughter 2 times before he was sent to the local asylum. If my brother hadn't been there to help me, God knows what would have happened to me. I hope the man is recovering, and that he is getting all the help he needs. Thanks for hearing my story. I just wanted to share the horror so that you guys can get a feel of how nightmarish that day was. This was by far the most scary thing that's ever happened to me before. Sometimes, in my nightmares, I still hear the sound of the knife scraping against my door. My roommate and I lived in a 2-story condo during our last year of college. It was a new development with mostly college-aged neighbors, and in a good part of town. Over the course of the year we had made friends with several of the tenants in the complex, so it wasn't surprising when someone would knock on our door late in the evening wanting to have a drink or just hang out. Both of our bedrooms were upstairs, one overlooking the backyard and one overlooking the front door and parking space. My bedroom happened to be the one overlooking the front door. I was laying in bed well after midnight, cramming for the last exam I would take in my college career. I was halfway asleep when someone started knocking on our front door. I thought very little of it, as there was a girl that lived next door who my roommate would occasionally hook up with. I just assumed it was her trying to come over after a night of partying. The knocking on the door soon sounded like someone lowering their shoulder and running into the door like they were trying to break in. I went to my window overlooking the door and could see a person that was trying to knock on our front door. It clearly was not the girl from next door that I thought it may be. This was a fairly large male, and he seemed intent on getting inside our place. He would take a few steps back, get a running start, and then hit our door as hard as he could. He wanted in. I left my bedroom and walked down the hallway to the other bedroom to wake up my roommate. Somehow he wasn't awake from the noise. As soon as I opened his door, I heard our front window glass shatter downstairs. We locked the bedroom door, and went through the bathroom that joined our two bedrooms and locked my bedroom door as well. Neither of us had a gun, just a couple of baseball bats if he did happen to make his way upstairs. We then called the police. We could hear him rummaging around downstairs, breaking some stuff and going through our belongings. Then he was silent. A few minutes later several police cars pulled into the neighborhood and eventually into our place. An officer came upstairs to get us, and when we walked downstairs, there was the perpetrator, laying on our couch in just his underwear. He was high on some drugs and passed out once he saw the closest thing to a bed, I guess. Not sure why he chose our place, but his life may have been saved by the fact nobody in the house had a gun. Not a sinister story by any means, but when he came busting through the glass I thought we were done for. This is one of the weirdest things that has happened to me up to date. I was home alone one night and was upstairs playing the good Call of Duty Black Ops 2 while on the phone with a friend. We were dominating that game. So we were close to winning when out of nowhere my house alarm went off. My friend heard it and asked if everything was okay. I said I don't know, I'm just gonna keep quiet for a second. I muted my TV and laid there in fear. After a few seconds I thought I heard something move downstairs. I knew that nothing could get into my room since the door was locked, but to feel a little more safe I hid in my closet. Hold on, I have to call 911, I said. When they answered I told them that someone was in my house and they told me someone will be right out. Of course they told me to stay on the line. So I was just in the closet waiting and listening. All of a sudden I heard something move outside my door, then there was silence. I was terrified, thinking next I would hear banging on the door as if they were trying to break in. The woman on the phone asked if I was still there and I said yes, but I think there's someone outside my door. She told me to keep calm and wait for the cops to arrive. For about another 2 minutes I was in that closet wrapped in silence. When out of nowhere I heard what sounded like someone trying to run away. But something wasn't right. It only took 3 steps. It started from outside my door and went into the direction of my dad's room. Only 3 steps isn't enough to even reach his door. Once again there was silence. I felt tears fill my eyes from the fear. Then the doorbell rang and the woman said that was them. I said okay and was forced to walk downstairs to open the door. I slowly opened my door and looked around. First thing I noticed was that my hallway light was now on. I waited to see if I could hear anything, but nothing seemed to be moving. So I ran to the steps and all the way to the door. I opened the door and felt relieved when I let them in. They began to search as I went to turn my alarm off. Now my alarm is able to show you the number that was opened up to set it off, and my body went cold when I saw that the number was the number corresponding to my dad's room. By this time they finished downstairs and went upstairs, to which I followed. We looked over every room but couldn't find any point of entry. All the windows were closed and locked, even in my dad's room. After searching they told me it must have been a glitch in the system. I disagreed and told them everything I heard, and they looked at me for a second. One of them was about to speak when we heard something on the roof outside my dad's window. We stood in the hall listening. It sounded like someone walking, taking 3 steps at a time, then stopping, then starting up again. They pulled out their guns and told me to stay here. I didn't listen and followed them into the room. We looked out the window and saw nothing. They opened the window and a gust of cold air blew in. They went through the window and out onto the roof. I stood inside looking out at them. They turned the corner of the house and out of nowhere I heard 3 gunshots go off, and one of the officers was running back to the window calling for backup and that his partner was down. He was frantic, and when he made it back through he told me to close the window and hide. I did so and we laid on the floor silent. Then, we heard something scratching on the window. The sound was nerve-wracking. Then it stopped and I could hear that his backup was now outside my house and coming in. I called my dad and he rushed home to see all these cops outside. He asked what happened and they told him all that they could. The officer that made it back into the house told them that something attacked them and killed his partner, but it was too dark to see what it was. Just that it didn't look human. They looked everywhere but couldn't find his body, just a trail of blood leading to the edge of the roof, then it stopped. Just to be safe they checked the house again and couldn't find anything. Then we heard one of them yell, "Come out and look at this." We rushed into my dad's room to see what he was talking about. What we saw terrified us all. On the window that had been scratched had your next etched into it. The officers suggested that we move ASAP. And so we did. We never did figure out what happened that night. But sometimes in the dead of night I think I hear 3 footsteps outside my room, but I'm not sure if it's my imagination, so I have kept it to myself.